Hello and welcome back to the channel. I want to say lately I've been starting each video off with thanking you for your engagement with each and every video that I upload, whether it's you subscribing, whether it's you commenting, liking, sharing the video, whatever it may be, offering some kind of encouragement. I appreciate it so much. So thank you for engaging with the channel. And if you're new here, welcome. And I highly encourage you to go back and look at some of the other videos so that you can be on track with what I have. So today I have my notes here and here. So if I'm looking down, that's because I want to make sure I give you the information accurately as possible from my standpoint. So my full disclaimer, per usual, is in the description, but I am not a medical doctor. And you can read the full disclaimer, I should say, in the description. Also, sometimes I do provide informational links in the description, so you might want to go over there too to see if you can look at any of the links, for additional information on each topic that I talk about. So today I'm going to share with you, finally we get around to my hysteroscopy procedure. So I don't know, in the previous videos I said I asked the doctor to spell this procedure because I had never heard of it, and then I made my own phonics so that I can make sure that I say it right. So hysteroscopy procedure is what we're going to talk about today. So my uterine health journey continues. Let's talk about it. Okay, so if you've watched all the previous videos regarding my journey, you'll understand how my doctor and I arrived at this point where she felt that a hysteroscopy is the next step to figure out what's happening and what's going on. So just a quick recap: January, I was bleeding. March, I had an ultrasound. My uterine lining was at 11, I think it's millimeters. And then I had another ultrasound in July, and my uterine lining had grown to 20 millimeters. So that's a real big, to me, increase in such a short amount of time. So my doctor wanted to understand what was going on, and she felt like this would be the next procedure for us to do that. And if you haven't watched any of the other videos, I highly encourage you to, because I go step by step and I provide a lot of detailed information of what happens and, my experience and excuse me, things of that nature. So if I remember correctly, if you are postmenopausal, your uterine lining should be 4 and under, as a note of reference for you. And mine was 11. So I'm going to talk to you about what happened to me during this procedure of having the hysteroscopy. So on the appointment, once my hysteroscopy appointment was scheduled, I was also scheduled to have a post-operative appointment. And basically, it was like a week or so prior. And basically that was to, I guess, make sure that you're fit and able to handle the procedure that's going to happen in the OR. So I met with a nurse practitioner, and basically it was a conversation. They go over your whole medical history to see, what's going on, kidneys, diabetes in you or your family and things of that nature. They do your weight, your blood pressure, and things like that. So it was an easy breezy conversation, nothing too stressful. Again, just wanted to make sure that you're able to, I'm looking at my notes from the pre-op, making sure that you're able to, withstand the procedure. The procedure itself was only going to be 30 minutes, if that. If they have to go longer, that means they had to do some kind of work. So, but they still, anytime you're going to get anesthesia, it's always serious to me, whether you go to the dentist or any place like that, it's to be taken seriously to me. So I'm very grateful that they took it, just as seriously. So I have some points here that they gave, and I wanted to make sure that I had. So during my meeting at the pre-op, she definitely described what was going to happen. So I have them here. So the day before the surgery, someone from the hospital would be calling me, a nurse, to confirm the surgery time, the location, like my diet before the procedure, the visitor policy, parking, and my time of the operation. So, and the procedure. So this is probably for everything that you do, that they go over things of that nature, which I totally like to have all of the details so you'll understand what's going on. I had to stop all of my vitamins. They just thought that would be best. I couldn't eat any solid foods after midnight, and my last beverage could be 2 hours before the procedure. And the beverage you're allowed to have 2 hours ahead of time is water, Gatorade, black coffee, tea, and you could have sugar if you wanted. And what was it? No cream or milk, anything like that. I just stuck with water, kept everything kind of clean and simple. So I did get that call and I did get that confirmation. So that was great. So the day of the surgery, I followed the instructions that they gave me about, no eating after midnight, and 2 hours before I could have my last glass of water. So so my procedure was at 10 a.m. So we had to be there at 8 a.m. So to be there 2 hours ahead of time, to get you ready and prep for the surgery. So there's a check-in procedure in the main area. And then once you check in with all of your identification and insurance card and things like that is confirmed, then they give you a card with a number. And that number is going to be attached to you. And that number is when somebody called me to go back into the room for me to prep for the procedure. There was also like a television monitor. And what it does is that number is associated with me. So anybody that's there with you in the waiting room can look at that number and see where you are during the procedure, waiting for the operation. You had the operation in recovery room. So it tells them all of that information, which I think is kind of nice because, doctors may not have, they don't have time because they're doing the procedure, but you can just look to see where your family member, loved one is during that time. And one of the things too, during the pre-op, they, gave me this, like sheet of paper for me also to take home. So I would remember all of these things that I would need to do to be prepared for it. And, they're very, very detailed. And I just really appreciate that. So once I was in the back, they came in, the nurse came in and she, started the IV and things of that nature with me. You can leave all of your personal items if you want with the person that you came with. But if not, they provide you with 2 bags, which I appreciated, one for your clothes, one for your shoes. And they had a secure locker where you can put your your things. And then after the procedure, they, make sure they bring it into the room that you're doing recovery in. So you get dressed and you get, ready for surgery. And then once you're dressed and your IV's in, the person that came with you, if somebody came with you, can come in the room and sit with you until you go into surgery. Now, someone doesn't have to come with you, but in order for you to leave, someone has to be able to drive you home. And that makes a lot of sense. And it's very well, I agree with that decision 125%. You're not going to be able to drive. So what I thought was pretty interesting, because this was my first time having such a procedure, was that I call them the pre-nurse comes in and they get you all prepped up and make sure you are who you are. Then the anesthesiologist came in to talk to me and let me know what I was going to be having. And my doctor had already kind of explained that to me as well. And I thought that was pretty nice. I felt very comfortable. And then my doctor came in, of course, to see how I was doing and if I had any last minute questions. And then there was a person that came in the room, which I thought was pretty interesting, to check to make sure all of those people had come into the office, into my room to talk to me. So I thought that was very good care to make sure that, they were just checking things off. Okay, she's good to go. So like I said, my appointment was scheduled for 10 a.m. and there was an emergency. And so they had to push mine back. And so I didn't, come, I was fine with that. Instantly started praying for whoever had an emergency and was praying for, that everything would, turn out well for that person. I do, I think I waited about an hour to an hour and a half. No, it wasn't an hour and a half, about an hour or so, hour and some change before they came and got me. And all I remember is they wheeled me out, and all I remember seeing was like the opening of the operating room. And then after that, I was in recovery. So I don't remember much else after that. One thing I can remember is that I was extremely groggy afterwards, which was kind of surprising to me because I've, had colonoscopy before, colonoscopies. And so I'm a little groggy, but not that bad. I can walk down to the car. This time I had to have a wheelchair, a wheelchair escort by the post recovery nurse to the car. So my friend went and got the car, and then they met us downstairs. What I thought was really nice was, though, I wear glasses and I need them to see, they're not readers. And I was just very careful and very, I just wanted to make sure that my glasses would be with me when I woke up and I wouldn't have to search for them because I would just, yeah, I just needed to have them. And when I woke up, they were sitting literally on my face. And I thought that was kind of funny. So they probably know when you're coming out of the procedure, and they probably know that, okay, this person, let's put her glasses back on. And then your two bags that was in security, they're there as well. And once you get dressed, your guest and visitor is, welcome to come back and post recovery with you, post operation in the recovery room with you. The doctor came in. Let me just make sure. The doctor came in and said she believes she found the source of the bleeding. And she would discuss that because we already had a post-op appointment schedule. So she would discuss in detail everything that happened. And I'll do a video about that separately. So that's pretty cool. And the type of procedure I just wanted to explain that was I had a hysteroscopy, which was the actual procedure where remember I was explaining in a previous video, it's like a little camera going up through your vagina cavity and through the cervix, and then it goes up into the uterus, and it just gives the doctor a clearer view that maybe the natural eye couldn't see. And I likened it unto if you've ever had a plumbing job done before, or maybe a duct work, they always have that long camera that they take to see images that they couldn't see with the natural eye. So I had that. I had a myomectomy. This was the title of it. A myomectomy is when people have fibroids and they have fibroids removed. So that's what it's called. And a polypectomy surgery, and that's the removal of polyps. So this is what the surgery, and a DNC. And this is what the surgery was called because one thing she did explain to me, depending on what she may see, like if she saw a bunch of polyps, she would remove them. Depending on if the part of the fibroids was anywhere in the uterus area, she could probably, scrape off that part and remove that. That's why it was called a myomectomy. So it's not the full fibroid surgery where they go in through your stomach and they, pull the fibroids out that way. It wasn't that type of, it was just anything concerning the uterus. So she called it all of that just in case she had to do anything like that. But the primary thing was the hysteroscopy. And so I just wanted to share with you, what happened post, how I prepped for the surgery. I keep calling it a procedure, but it really was a surgery because anytime that you're going under, it's a surgery to me. And one of the things that I did talk to my doctor about, because I met with my doctor I met with my doctor before the procedure, and we did talk. And so she kind of went over everything and, answered any questions that I had. But one of the things I did ask her was who was going to be in the room, and was this, and how invasive was this going to be? So it wasn't going to be invasive at all because it was going through, like I said, the vaginal cavity, and it just was looking. It just depended on what she had to do. She said it shouldn't take more than 30 minutes, at the most 45, depending on what was going on. And so I felt very comfortable with, with her explaining that. But I also like to know who's in the room because I like to, I prayed for all of them, the nurses, the anesthesiologists. I don't care if you was sweeping in the room. I prayed for everybody that would be in that OR room, and the technology and how things would go. And with her, I was asking, would she be able to see things on a monitor and go that way? And she was saying, yes. I even asked her if I could have pictures. I do have pictures. I don't know what they look like. It just looks like a circular, and it's dark and it goes there. So it looked good. She said, but I'll give you more details in the next video about that. So that is a procedure that I had, in addition to just having the plain histoscopy. And also remember too, you could have this in an office as well. But because, the bleeding in January, and then because of the way the uterine lining increased so quickly, she felt like she really wanted to go in there and through the OR option and see what was going on. And I totally agreed with her because I wanted to understand what was going on with my body as well. So that is it for today. The next video, when I talk about my journey, I will be going over my doctor's appointment, post doctor's appointment, and in detail of what she said that she did during the procedure, the operation, what she did during the procedure, what she found, and our next steps from there. So I hope that you are, I don't know, I don't want to say enjoying the journey, but at least learning something from this. I hope this prompts you to, do your own research if you're having any kind of pain, any kind of discomfort, any kind of concern for yourself or a loved one. That's what this is meant to do, is to be a prompt for you to go ahead and dig a little deeper and really find out about uterine health and what's really going on in our womb and how wonderful it can be. But then when it's not doing well, how it can really affect us. And the more we know, the better we can take care of ourselves. And that is the whole purpose of me starting this channel, sharing my journey in full transparency and full details as much as possible so that it can be a help to anybody that lands on this channel. That is my hope, my desire, and my prayer. So until next time, I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care.